Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday 4 p.m. session by MyCoolPackaging, which aims to provide better, cheaper, and convenient learning experiences for all. Today's session is very important and gratifying to us because the outcome of the session is not only going to benefit the audiences, but also going to benefit and motivate a girl from Hyderabad whose father is undergoing a critical surgery. The girl today who will be given support today is Miss Sai Jyoti, and she is from 32nd batch of Indian Institute of Packaging. It will be a small effort from MyCoolPackaging team, all audiences, speaker itself, to extend our support to her. Our prayers are with Sai Jyoti for speedy recovery of her father. Now, we'll proceed for the session today, and the topic for the day is case-based learning. As we all know, best medicine for heart is exercise. The best way to learn is case study based learning. It is not only giving a student effective idea about the subject, but it is one of the easiest way to learn a subject. Now, there are well-defined methods to study a subject via case study. In this session today, we'll discuss different methods to study a case and analyze different case studies. The speaker for the day is from academic fraternity, and he is having more than 21 years experience in academic as well as corporate world. He has also written more than 23 publications in different journals and also a board member of 5 international bodies. Now with this, let me welcome speaker of the day today, Dr.Subrata Chattopadhyay, with applause. Now, before I pass the session to him, let me share the schedules of the webinar today. 10 minutes question and answer session and 20 minutes speech session. Audiences can put their questions in chat box and we'll try to reply one by one. Also, I would like to request all the audiences to put it in mute mode. With this, without further delay, I would like to request Dr. Chattopadhyay to please start your session, please. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, very good afternoon, Prasanjit. Thank you for the introduction, and this session is actually for a cause that we are doing. So I thought that I'll be taking up a topic which is of relevance to management students as also management practitioners, which is introduction to case-based teaching. So can we move to the next slide, please? So what is the case? Is it a story, or is it an actual situation, a vivid description of that particular situation? Now, when we talk about situation, the situation can be actual, the situation can be hypothetical. So is it a framed or assimilated situation which is not real life, or is it a research outcome? So problems which have been solved, which give a counterintuitive understanding. So the thing is, we'll try to understand that what is a case study. So we move on to the next slide to understand what is a case study. So starting off, what is the objective of a case study? So a case study actually allows the students to apply the concepts. Now, when I say apply the concepts, the theory that they have studied in the books, the different models that they have studied, to understand the context and to decide on the concepts that can work, which should be best to apply, and it gives a practical insight and exposure towards linking the theory that they have studied in the books, towards linking the different concepts, the models that they have studied, to applied orientation, a practical orientation, and it gives a generalistic perspective from a specific perspective, a theoretical perspective. It generalizes the thing and transfers the learning to a different context. Hence, it is very important to learn with case studies. Now, what happens is, when a management practitioner is taken through a case-based learning, there is a lot of focus on internalization. That means that the concepts that are studied by the student in the theory books, they can actually internalize that, they can actually relate to the theory, and the learning is more holistic. So when we talk about just knowledge gathering, the theoretical knowledge, it is less permanent, but in case of a case study or case-based learning, it gives more internalization because of its practical orientation. So it's a process of approaching a problem, and a case study is just the beginning and not the end to a problem. It gives you a particular insight about maybe a situation, maybe a particular research, or maybe a particular tenure during which the protagonist or the case author has written the case. So now we come to understanding that when a case method becomes optimal. So I'll pose a number of questions out here. So the questions are like this: when should a case study be used? Will it be used when there is some ambiguity in the context? That is, some contextual ambiguity exists, or there is some dilemma in the decision-making process, or it should be used when there is no unique solution to the problem or the discussion, or is it just application of concepts? So generalizations from one. So when we talk about a generalization, as I said, in a case study, it is done. So it is generalization from one. That means that from a particular theory or a particular knowledge or a particular understanding, we generalize and make it much more vast and vivid and practical, a generalistic approach, and that is why it is called inductive reasoning. Now again, the question is, can there be a theoretical basis to the cases? Is the emphasis on analysis and making choices? So these are certain things which are there in a case study. Moving on, next slide please. So when we talk about a case study, there are different alternatives to the learning process. And what are the alternatives? The alternatives are, one can be just a plain chalk and talk method of lectures, or it can be a PowerPoint presentation. Now again, when a PowerPoint presentation is used, then it has its own limitations because the theory is mostly discussed through a PowerPoint. So lecture method is one, or the participants can do some project work, and from there the learning process can come. Or it can be that neither someone facilitates the learning process by a lecture, or the participant does not do a project work but learns by himself or herself from books. Or it can be that people, while on a job, they learn the different things. So gradual learning takes place with experience. So they may not have a theoretical foundation, but then based on the problems that they face in real life, they can actually learn while on the job. Or it can be by the different assignments which are passed on at different points of time, maybe by an organization or by the institution, the supervisors, they give different assignments, and based on the assignments, the learning process can take place. So, having said that, what are the limitations of a case study? So, when we talk about learning, the learning is student dependent. Why? Because the students should come prepared with the theory and the case questions. So it is student dependent. The quality of learning could vary across the student set based on their ability to relate the theory to the case. And the seriousness of this linkage of the theory to the case and the questions that to be discussed to clear the theoretical concepts and its applications, it is determined by the group, and the group determines the learning possibilities. And hence, pre-class preparation for the participants is pivotal, and it cannot be substituted. Pre-class preparation for the participants and the faculty has to be sound, and there is not necessarily a clear closure or a takeaway which might not satisfy the students. So many a times people think that a case will always give a solution. So it may not yield a particular solution. There may not be a closure, and that can be disturbing to the. Now understand. Next slide, please. Let us now understand that what are the different roles of the people who are involved in the case learning process. So what is the role of the faculty? What does the faculty actually do? So the faculty should help the student to understand the complexity, facilitate the deeper understanding by triggering thought process. So the faculty should provoke the students to think, and in the process to understand the concept deeply, and its applicability should be emphasized. Develop the ability to comprehend the nuances of decision making, because when we talk about a case, there are different perspectives, and each is a decision making situation, and this ability to comprehend makes the student think deeply about the case and also the peripherals of the case. And also the faculty should link the discussion to the theoretical anchors, that means the theoretical concept that they studied, so that the generalizations, that is application of the theory to the practice, is seamless and is robust, and the knowledge is vivid, and there is a continuity. So that is very important. So basically, the faculty should push the students to think harder and thereby discover the learning value. So the learning value would be best if the students do participate with the faculty so as to make the learning process seamless and holistic. Moving on, let us now understand that since we have talked about the role of the faculty, now let us now understand what is not the role of the faculty. The faculty should not help the student to get the answer. The answers to the questions should come through the case discussions in the session, and it should be student centric, and the faculty should not give the answer. Facilitate deeper understanding by telling the student what is the right thing. The faculty should not facilitate deeper understanding by telling the student what is right and what is wrong. Rather, the student, it should remain open-ended and come from the students to understand what should be the right thing. Develop the ability to comprehend the nuances of decision making. So that is also not the role of the faculty. So the faculty should not help the students to develop abilities to comprehend the nuances of the decision making, because the decision making has to be again done by the students. Link the discussion to the theoretical anchors so that the generalizations are robust. Again, linking the discussions to the theoretical anchors should also come from the students. So as you can understand, the faculty is just a facilitator, and he or she runs the entire show and facilitates the discussion so that there is discussion of the complexity of the case, there is deeper understanding of the case, there is comprehension of the case, and also the linkage to the theoretical anchors are robust, and everything should come from the participants, from the students, from the practitioners who are undertaking the case. Moving on, next slide. Having understood what is the role of the faculty and what is not the role of the faculty, let us now move on to what is the role of the student then. So the student should cope with the substantiative and process demands of the several courses, and the student should need to deal with the human dynamics of the overall educational program, the university or the school or the society. So that is very important. So when I talk about the student dealing with the human dynamics of the educational program, that means the application of the case or the theoretical learning, the student should deal with the dynamics of the educational program, and the application orientation should be appreciated by the student. Next slide, please. So having understood that, let me leave with some key thoughts. So what are the key thoughts? And if you see this key thoughts, whose responsibility is learning? It is the responsibility of the participants. It is the responsibility of the practitioners. It is the responsibility of the students. And also, if you see all the questions, the answers are the same. Who has the maximum to lose if the learning does not take place? It is the same from the recipients then. Who should be motivated to learn? What are the basic requirements for the case learning to be effective? Can the faculty be absorbed of all the learning responsibilities? So is it the role of the faculty to make the learning process happen by some way or the other? It is actually not. So I leave it to the participants to make their own conclusions. So moving on, why do we study a case? What are the benefits of a case study? As I already said, that the learning achieved in class is long lasting, because many a times what happens is the participants who are exposed to the nuances of the case, to the applied learning, they can apply the case learning at a later point of time and relate to the practical happenings or the incidents or the events. That is extremely crucial. The process of thinking on the topic commences in class, and it does not end, but rather it continues throughout life. So it is much more holistic and long lasting. And since the context is set, the participants get a true real life feel as to how to understand the concept in the context, theory as well as practice. Moving on, what are the benefits of a case method? Again, continuing. So the learning is not memory driven. So you don't have to memorize the theory, but rather, since you are learning from practical insights, so it is much more deeper into the memory, and it is more long lasting. And since there is a lot of discussions, debates which go on during the session, the understanding of others' points of view and putting forward their own views, that simulates the skills, so that there is collaborative decision making, which is very much important in today's organizations, wherein a team-centric environment is of pivotal importance. Apply theory to practice to solve problems. So let us now move on to the different types of cases. So when we talk about different types of cases, there are incident cases, background cases, research case, personal experience case, and field case. So we'll try to understand each of these in the next few slides. So what is an incident case? An incident case is, it actually narrates a particular incident. So it's a caselet, maybe a small case, describes a single incident, usually read in class, and it actually illustrates the concepts and raises the issue for discussion. Like examples are taken in class, so it is basically related to an incident, and it is an incident-based case. Let's move on to the next slide, which talks about a background case. So background case is about a background of a company or an organization, right? It provides information in an interesting real-life flavor, and it is like a story. But the purpose is to introduce information about the industry or the company or even a theory. And it can be written entirely from the different secondary sources, the published sources. So in case of a background case, there is no permission which is required. It provides a background because the entire data is accumulated from different research, secondary research, and the data which is already available in different physical as well as virtual forms, and hence too much of permission is not required at all. Moving on to the next type of case which I discussed is, can we move on to the next slide? So it's a research case. So when we talk about a research case, you're likely to have multiple perspectives adding to the richness. So as I said that it's a research case, it is not dependent on the professional or personal bias because it's based on the research and the primary research which is done by the case writers. And when the organizational point of view or concern is important, it is useful. However, a research case has a limitation. It cannot have the decision focus of the manager since it is based on research, and rich contextual inside information is required, which if not available may not be relevant for the decision making process. And the last two types of cases which we discussed, the next slide please, which is personal experience based case. So when we talk about a personal experience based case, it's the data source is the case writer's experience. So the case writer writes from his or her own experience, okay, and provides insights and personal experiences so as to take the case to an elevated level of understanding. So for example, if someone is working in a particular industry for around 20-25 years, so he can write a case based on his experiences about the organization, or his experiences about different incidents that happen and how he has actually tackled the case. But when that particular writer is writing about any particular incident, that would be an incident based case, and the personal experience based case, which will actually be an accumulation of the different incidents so as to narrate the case writers' experience and expertise as to how the different problems has been solved by the case writer very effectively. So now we come to the last type of case, which is a field case or an interview-based case. So the focus is on real issue facing the manager and the company. So for example, a particular company was into a particular line of business, but they have moved on to another business which is not related to them. Now the case writer wants to understand what propelled the company to move on to that particular area or the sector wherein they do not have an expertise. What are the prospects that are there? So when an interview-based case is conducted, it is conducted with the top management of organization, and it is always helpful because a rich quantitative and qualitative data relevant to the decision maker, industry, and the company would be available. If that is there, then that enriches the case. And since it will be an interview-based case, and the case would be on a particular company, so hence there should be approval from the company. And since there is an approval from the company gives a green signal and a go ahead in a written form. Hence, it is more authentic. And as we say these days, sanitized version only. Okay. And this is the case which is most commonly published and taught across the different schools. The cases that I have written of virtual infocom, of WOMOMO, and some other cases that I have written. So all these are field interview-based case based on my discussions with the management of the organizations. So these are the different types of cases, and I have discussed vividly about what is case-based learning, what is the role of the faculty, what is not the role of the faculty, what is the role of the students, what are the benefits that are derived from a case method of learning, and that forms basically the understanding of what a case study is and how a case study should be taken up. Now a question generally comes up that when we talk about a case study has a limitation because we are in very dynamic times, and in this dynamic times, say for example, a case which is written in 2013 gets published in 2016, and if we are in 2020 when the case is being taught, maybe the entire situation has changed. So that is a limitation of a case study. And also it is very important that a case study should not be restricted within the boundaries of the case. So it should move beyond the case related to what is relevant to the discussion. So nowadays, people are moving beyond that thing. So hence, that makes the discussion much more relevant, and the understanding is much more complete. So that's all that I had to discuss. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to.
Dr. Subrata, and the session is very valuable. We look forward to some more sessions again. Thank you all the audiences. Thank you Dr. Subrata Chattopadhyay for being with us, and we look forward to meet once again.